Hey, what's happening out there? This is Halftime Prep Talk.
Aaron, I guess things are looking up here at HTPT.
You could definitely say that. Matt Sparks Zack Klemme. I'm Aaron Snyder. We're here in Vanceburg, Lewis County High School. You're watching HTPT on the Halftime Prep Talk Facebook page, dailyindependent.com, or YouTube. You're going to see Coach Josh Hughes here in a little bit. He's in his 9th year here at Lewis County. We also have 6'2" junior quarterback Isaac Kelly joining us. Lewis County is 0-3, but they're trying to right the ship against Powell County this Friday night right here in Vanceburg. Before we get to that, though, look at the Chick-fil-A ticker. You'll see that game as part of the Week 5 schedule. You'll also see the Week 4 recap. Several scores that kind of jump out, maybe that look like surprises to you from last week, but it is what it is at this point. You know, we're still trying to figure out some of these teams. Teams are trying to figure out themselves, right. And you know, you look at, for one, the Ashland score, 8-7. We'll get to that game here in a little bit, but one of those exciting finishes. Then you look at the Raceland score, and they scored a little bit more than I thought they would, and I think a lot of people thought they would. They scored 35 points against a solid Greenup County defense.
They did. One of the things that Coach Scott Grizzle talked about in the post game is that, and we've said this all along, Raceland has more depth than really most of the 4A schools it's going to play, which is kind of impressive given that they're a Class A school. Pretty close to 70 players are hovering around that. They made a concerted effort to go kind of one platoon with some guys and two platoon and switch in and out, and they just had their legs under them a little bit more in the Greenup game. Some bad things happened in Greenup, and I don't know that score is indicative of how close that game is or of Greenup County's relative quality, but certainly an impressive win for the Rams out there in Lloyd.
Yeah, well, we actually said this on our season premiere. I think it's a season of transition for a lot of teams.
It is.
A lot of new guys, a lot of new spots, and they're trying to adjust to that new role on their team. It might take a little bit.
No doubt about that. All right, let's move on to game balls. And Matthew, I'm going to let you have the liberty of going first.
All right, first time I've gone first in a while.
Liberty.
I don't need a football this week. I'm going volleyball this week. I think it's time to talk about this Prairie View volleyball team. They're on a roll right now, playing well together. I think they've established some kind of chemistry on that team. They've won 8 of their last 10 games. Now they hold a 10-4 record, which is the second best right now in the region. And I think, you know, and they just won their first ever district title in school history.
How about that?
My turn?
I guess.
All right.
I don't even know what to say after that.
I'm not sure
Prairie View
either.
volleyball. I don't think we've mentioned them on the show.
I don't remember.
So HTPT history, we're here at Vanceburg for the first time.
Yes.
Well, we've been in Vanceburg.
Yeah.
But not out here in the beautiful surrounding areas that this complex.
Yes.
Well, you know, there's some other sports going on here around here. I think that should draw people's attention.
Hey, I'm not
you
saying
have to
you're
tell
wrong
me that. I say that every other week.
Yeah,
Come on now.
Hey, you know,
Act like you invented the wheel.
I'm just pointing it out.
All right. Well, we're going to stick with the gridiron for this one. Avery Bowman, Lawrence County.
It's our first fight.
Emotional night.
The honeymoon period's
So,
over.
okay.
Yeah, that's right.
All right.
All right, yeah, okay.
Here we go, football.
Avery Bowman.
Yes, Avery Bowman, Lawrence County last week, an emotional week for him because, of course, Blake Ramey, the whole thing that happened with that. Lawrence County, he was wearing number 45, which is Ramey's old number. Ran for 147 yards, 3 touchdowns. Big win over Powell County. You're looking at Lawrence this week. We'll talk about them in a minute, but going into a big game with Greenup County. And Lawrence is probably a little bit ahead of maybe where people might have thought they would be based on how much of their offense they lost to graduation and defection and all that other kind of stuff. But certainly a big game for Bowman and a time that they needed, and certainly a team that needed somebody to step up and carry the ball for them.
Well, here a couple of weeks ago on HTPT, when we were over at Greenup County, we tried to engage with the viewers here and tried to get the viewers to interact with us a little bit. If you're out there listening to us, I'm very disappointed in the response because we could have had some good nicknames thrown our way on Twitter. But instead, we had nothing, no response whatsoever. It's like we're talking to a wall. Use the hashtag HTPT and let us know what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Just, you know,
Your deepest fears and
we're in the
insecurities.
nest. We're in the nest here.
No,
But anyway,
Fairview was 2 weeks ago.
well, it was 3 weeks ago at Greenup. Is when we
But the
asked this
nest,
question.
you said nest.
Oh
my goodness.
I don't get good
That
jokes.
just spell everything out for you people.
We're in the den. We're in the den, not the nest.
Ashland's quarterback decided to come up with his own nickname for the Ashland-Russell rivalry. He called it the Braxton Bowl. Braxton Ratliff wins the game for Ashland on a touchdown and then the ensuing 2-point conversion. Ashland, of course, it was a team effort, but Ratliff definitely stood out, showed a lot of guts, showed a lot of leadership, as I wrote on Monday. and they won 8-7. So Braxton Ratliff, you could see the touchdown, or actually you could see one of the most impressive runs on that touchdown drive right here. It was a 25-yard scamper up the middle. It had some nice spin moves, had a couple guys dragging him, dragging a couple guys with him. So Braxton Ratliff definitely deserves a game ball, as does Avery Bowman, and as do the Fairview Volleyball Lady Eagles. Now, let's move on to three-point stance. Three-point stance is our top 3 games of the week segment, and let's kick it off with one that's not part of our top 3 games of the week this week, because we're here at Lewis County, Matthew, and we've got to mention Lewis County and Powell County. I don't care if the records are 0-3. It's important for these teams to get a win.
Yeah, I think so. Like you said, both teams entered this game 0-3, but I think it's a really big game for Lewis County. I mean, the last 2 seasons they've really, struggled a bit. So I think if you're Lewis County and maybe Coach Hughes, I think you're looking for a confidence-building win, maybe to increase that spark for the rest of the season. I think for Lewis County though, it really starts on the defensive side of the ball. First 3 games they've given up an average of 57 points a game. That's not going to cut it. I'm pretty sure they know that because they have a lot of playmakers on offense. Quarterback Isaac Kelly starts that off. So, but if you look at last season, these 2 teams both started 0-3 as well. Powell County and Lewis County played at the same time last year. Powell County put up 53 points on Lewis County, and that springboarded them to 8 straight wins. So
Lewis County has to be thinking about that, though.
So
it's got to be on their mind.
So I'm sure Lewis County's hoping for that same effect this year for them.
Well, sure. Zach, let's go to top 3 games of the week. Greenup County at Lawrence County. You're going to be in Louisiana on Friday.
A big game. Of course, it's not a district game, but in terms of Greenup, they had a real nice one a couple of weeks ago against Fleming County. Shut down a pretty high-powered offense that throws the ball maybe a little bit more than what Lawrence County will. But if you're Lawrence, it's just one of those things where, again, like we just mentioned, they're probably a little bit ahead of where maybe people thought they would be, and this is an opportunity to catch a pretty good football team for them at home and see what they can do with it. I see this being a game that maybe will be a little bit closer than what people thought it might be in the preseason, and Lawrence has made some strides, and these are 2 teams that are probably going to try to run the ball a little bit. Of course, Greenup threw it last week more than they ran it against Raceland, but that may have been possibly a little bit dictated by how good Raceland's front 7 is.
Right.
Of course, they also found out how good Raceland's secondary is. So it's kind of one of those things where you get in your own head and you wonder if you allow the other team to dictate too much, and certainly not accusing anybody of that, but occasionally people fall prey to that in every walk of life. So it'll just be an interesting thing to see, what team is able to establish their identity, establish their philosophy, what they want to do in the game, and make the other team try to play catch up.
I think Lawrence County, you mentioned them earlier, is kind of emerging onto the scene a little bit quicker than what people expected, but they have not been consistent yet, so they're looking for that kind of consistency. Ashland's going to be at Ironton. That's another one of our top 3 games, and of course the Tomcats do not typically fare well at Tanks Memorial Stadium. You look at both teams, they're both trying to start a streak here. Ashland's coming off a nice win over Russell, 8-7. Ironton's coming off a big convincing win over Fairland, 31-0. I was talking to Coach Mark Bass earlier this week. You get a sense from him that he was satisfied with some areas, but still would like to see a little bit more from certain other ones. He really likes the way that a couple of the guys up front, Morris and Webb, are playing up front on both sides of the ball, especially Webb on both sides of the ball, kind of wreaking havoc up there. He's a big guy, but he's also athletic. So with Ashland's frontline inexperience, it's going to be an interesting battle up front. Now, does Ashland have more speed and athletes? Possibly. And they have Braxton Ratliff, who has to be one of the most confident kids on the football field on Friday night after what happened this past Friday night. Coach Tony Love called him a humble kid, which I think he is, but you have to see, there's a balance between humbleness and confidence, and I think he has both of those going for him right now. All right, Matthew, what game you got?
I've got Boyd County Russell. I think for the Lions, I think this is a really game. This is a good measuring stick for them. Okay, they're off to their best start in 11 seasons, 3-0. They're ranked 9th now in Class 4A. But I think you can argue that maybe this is their first true test of the season. And I think if you can go to Russell and pull off a win against that stingy defense, but it actually maybe show that maybe they're for real this year. For Boyd County, I think it starts with Christian Brawley. He's the engine to make that motor go for Boyd County. He's already found the end zone 11 times already this season. But you would think T.J. Maynard and that defense is going to be a point of difference for them. So you maybe look at some guy like Dalton Atkins, maybe Donovan White had to step up and have big games for them if they're going to pull off that win. Russell's had trouble scoring the ball.
Yeah.
They've only tallied 27 points, averaging 9 points a game. They want to bump that up. I think if they're going to pull out the victory too.
Yeah, and that's, not to say that the quarterback hasn't played well. Austin Smith has played pretty well.
Yeah.
Landon Brewer's a good receiver out there. They have some skill. It's just a matter of putting it all together.
I mean, they've
Plus getting inexperience up front.
Yeah, they've run into some good defense too, but Nick Conley hasn't really got off the start that we thought he would.
Right.
I think that's also they've been focusing on him defensive wise.
Sure.
So these other guys need to step up too.
The funny thing about it is you mentioned one 100-yard game, and that was against who on paper was probably the best defense they played, which is Ironton. So that's kind of an interesting thought. He's had good games in the past against the likes of Ironton and big rivalry games, but also had Greenock County. And T.J. Maynard talked after that game about how well Greenock County's opposing coaches kind of tried to stymie their running attack. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do to kind of try to spring him this way.
Yeah. Coach Josh Hughes coming up.
Right, we're back with Lewis County Coach Josh Hughes. And Coach, going into your 9th year here this year, and it probably doesn't seem like you've been here that long, does it?
It doesn't, no.
Yeah.
Time's flown by.
Yeah, no doubt. Of course, looking at Lewis County is kind of one of those places that for some reason a lot of its people kind of stick around. Of course, you've been here for a while, and maybe for a while longer. You look at coaches like Corky Prater was here for a while, and Gary Kidwell's been very involved with community. Joe Hampton's been coach of the basketball team here. What is it about this school, this community, that people just kind of want to stick around?
I think everyone's supportive. They make it easy to be a place to coach. Obviously everyone wants to win, the success that goes with it, but there's the community side of it, and what are you doing with kids, and they appreciate that at this school.
On the field, of course, 2011 was a great year for you guys, probably the best you guys have had in quite some time, and you look back at it, it's probably hard to believe it's 5 years ago now, but what kind of sticks in your mind about that year and the experiences that came with that?
It was such a fast year. You didn't have the long weekends, and Brad Locks kind of brought this up a few years later. He said, you didn't really seem like you stopped to enjoy it enough. And when I think back, I may not have, but it was sort of like, one game was over and you're like, all right, who we have next? You were ready for the preparation the next week, and that was a bunch that you never really had to worry about practice being less than entertaining.
Right.
And, fun group of kids.
Right. Of course, some of those guys hung around and they're on your staff now.
Exactly.
And Ray Schaefer touched on that in a preview story earlier this year. But what's that been like, kind of integrating those guys into what you do?
It's been great. That kids need to hear it from someone other than me. They always look at you like they've never heard this before. I always think it's funny to have kids run the chains in a JV game because they hear the other coach saying the exact same thing to their kids. But incorporating, Johnny Everman helped us a lot in the summer, especially. He was a defensive end on that team, and just getting that we've been there and this stuff will work if you will focus and do your job.
Of course, one of the big games, two of the big games really from that year were against Powell County, and that's who you guys have this year. You've had kind of a mixed bag against them, some big wins, and of course lost the playoff game that year to them. You guys are both coming in this year 0-3. What's that game going to be like in terms of kind of what's preparation been like in the atmosphere?
I think as far as like both teams, it's a must win. It's hard to keep teenagers focused, if they're not winning. And you work so hard, you spend so much time in the off season, and I never believe a team shows up and isn't ready to play because I think you put so much effort into it. But I think that's one that we really need to keep rolling for the season and get us started going into district play. And we've played some tough teams. We were in the game last week. Early on, we were in the Boyd game a little bit, and I really think we need to be able to keep going and use momentum, and we haven't done a good job of using momentum yet.
And of course, two teams, Boyd and Grant, that you played have turned out to have pretty good starts to the year.
Exactly.
You guys are throwing the ball a little bit more with Isaac Kelly than Lewis County maybe traditionalists are used to seeing. Is that kind of a product of your personnel, or is that a philosophy change, or maybe a little bit of both?
I think it's more personnel, but some of it's philosophy. I've got Cole Cooper, played at KCU. He was quarterback for me in 2009. Billy Melton, who calls the offense the last 3 years now. That's one reason I put those guys in charge of that, is I wanted a little bit of a philosophy change so that we could get some of those really good athletes. We noticed that we didn't have the big bruisers as much, but Isaac as a quarterback is a different kind of kid for us. He's an athletic kid, strong kid, so we wanted the ball in his hands instead of necessarily being a running back offense.
Right, sure. Switching gears a little bit, of course, you became a father recently.
Yes.
Sophia Kate, 7 months old.
7 month old.
What is that? Of course, a first-time father, so you're used to obviously as much time as this takes up. What's it been like trying to incorporate that and balance all of that now?
Double my coffee. I made sure I brought the coffee machine to school. I usually didn't do that, but
Right.
it's a lot of fun. She's on the edge of the field when the game's over, and that's nice. That kind of makes, softens whatever happened a little bit.
Sure.
But it's hard to juggle a lot of it. She stays up later because I'm getting home later.
Right.
But just trying to give her as much time as possible. But hopefully in a few years she's running on the sidelines with me after games and at practice.
Yeah, sure. Again, kind of in looking at your life off the field a little bit, found out talking to you a little bit before, a KISS fan. So of course, KISS was in Huntington last weekend, and you said you bumped into a couple of other people we might know there.
Yeah, Kevin Brown, we were in line. I seen Kevin walking up, so I had to talk to Kevin a few minutes. He said he's been a fan, I think, 30 years, and this is the first chance he had to see him.
Very nice.
I'd love to say it's my first time, but I think I've seen him 5 or 6. Anytime they're around, I'm going to see KISS.
Yeah.
I've only painted my face once, though. But I was in college then, so I didn't count. But Taylor Hickle, quarterback from East Carter, he was also in line ahead of us a little bit, so it is kind of neat. Of course, Kevin had a Feast on East shirt on, so I'm glad Taylor didn't see that. But it's good running into people.
No doubt. All right, we're here with Lewis County coach Josh Hughes.
All right, here with junior Isaac Kelly of the Lewis County Lions, starting quarterback. Have received every snap this year, 63 passes you have on the resume this year. I want to ask you though about how your role has kind of evolved offensively. You go back to last season, what was your first experience like behind center in a varsity game?
Very nerve-wracking. It's changed a lot. Of course, getting more reps in there. Coaching them gave me the opportunity last year, fourth game into the season, to get some more reps under my belt, knowing that I'd be being behind center this year. So it's confidence has went up tremendously, and it's just been a lot easier knowing that I'm the guy.
And you have a few different receivers that you like to go to. You completed 29 passes this year, 406 yards, a couple touchdowns. You've also rushed for a couple touchdowns. I believe Austin Plank is the leading receiver, but can you talk about your receiving core and what kind of weapons you have out there?
I'm very excited about our receiving core. We're young. Austin Plank is the only senior that we have out there right now, and we're really athletic and fast. They do a very good job of adjusting to my routes whenever I underthrow the ball or overthrow them. They go and get it for me. And I know that I'm very confident in them going up and making a play for me.
How exciting is this kind of brand of offense? You guys do air it out quite often. Being the quarterback in this kind of offense, how exciting is it?
Oh, you gotta love it. You're 4 wide, got a back in the backfield blocking for me, and it's just great knowing that they have the confidence in me to throw it almost every time I'm under center.
Obviously, the results aren't what you guys want so far, but a chance to rectify that this Friday. You got Powell County here on Friday night. What are you looking forward to maybe in that game to be able to be a little bit more competitive, maybe come out on the winning side?
Just come out. We just got to come out ready to play, and we do come out ready, but we just got to stay confident. We get down too early, and a big thing that we've talked about this weekend is confidence. We gotta have that confidence and get that dog in us to just play all 4 quarters. The game's not over. I think we can't give up too early. If we get down, we just got to keep pushing and keep playing.
Tanner Underwood's been the defensive leader so far. He has 27 tackles on the season. How much do you guys kind of look at him as the leader of the defense? I know you're back there as a corner and safety. How much do you look at him as the leader of the defense, and how much is your defensive role kind of enhanced a little bit?
Tanner Underwood's a big guy for us. He makes a lot of plays in the backfield too. He gets through the line pretty easily, and he's a guy that we looked up to as a senior. He leads the defense. He does. He's vocal out there on the field, but he's still a soft-spoken guy. My roles came up a lot this year from last year. They trust me whenever I'm playing safety to be the only guy back there. If everything breaks loose, I'm I'm the guy to stop big plays. So it's just a big confidence swing from last year to this year.
Coach Hughes was just on here, and he said he painted his face once in college for a Kiss concert. How much would you like to see him paint a face on the side, paint his face for a game on the sidelines or something? You know, paint it blue, get it all riled up.
I don't even know how to answer that. I don't know. Coach Hughes is a funny guy. He likes getting us excited, so I could see him doing something like that. I could see him and our offensive coordinator, Melton. That's something that they'd both do. So.
Coach said he's the oldest guy on the staff now, so overall a young staff because he's only 35. What's it like playing for a coaching staff that's so young? How well do they relate to you guys?
They relate to us well. You know, I've worked a lot with Cole Cooper. He helps a lot. He knows every single play inside and out, which has really helped me with him coming from KCU and running spread a lot. And another young guy that I look to a lot is Isaac Weddington. Mm-hmm. He's here a lot on Friday nights, and he helps me with my reads. I do a lot of stuff with him personally, just me and him, and it helps knowing that there's a lot of guys that we can relate to, hearing it, like he said earlier, hearing it from someone other than the older coaches.
Sure.
It makes it a lot easier, and they're really confident in us too, and we like hearing that from them.
All right, Isaac. Well, I appreciate your time, and the best of luck the rest of the season.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're back here on HTPT for Two for the Road. Before we get to that, I want to just say a quick thank you once again to Coach Josh Hughes and Isaac Kelly for being on here and for allowing us to trespass in the Lions Den for a few minutes. It's been fun. It's a beautiful day out here, and
that's a great time.
It is, yeah. Had a good time here at Lewis County. So let's move on to Two for the Road, and I'm going to go to baseball.
Okay.
The pennant races are heating up. I don't really want to so much talk about that. I want to talk about the Reds' second half of the year. I read a stat the other day that the Reds have 7 shutout wins in the second half, you know, since the All-Star break, which is actually the best in Major League Baseball in terms of that category. Very impressive the second half. The pitching has been pretty good. Dan Straley has kept up his job. I think he's solidifying his spot in the starting rotation for next year, and it wouldn't be a crazy idea to start him opening day. But I'm going to talk about managers real quick.
Okay.
Brian Price, yes, his contract is up at the end of the year, but I think he has actually managed this team pretty well. The personalities, the moving parts, some of the injuries they've had to deal with, and some of the front office moves that people initially thought weren't going to pan out have actually turned out to be pretty good moves.
Yeah.
Brian Price, though, I have never been an advocate of his, but I believe that he might have just saved his job. Now, of course, his contract is up at the end of the year, but I believe the Reds had zero intention going into the season of re-signing him after this year.
Yeah.
Now I think there's probably a 35-70 or 35-65 chance of Price possibly being the Reds manager next year. Same goes for Joe Girardi. If there's any Yankees fans out there, Girardi has one more year on his contract for the Yankees. I felt like going into the year he might be fired before the year was over, but man, they've come on in the second half and they're actually in the pennant race. So I think Girardi and Price still might have jobs in the dugout next year.
Well, for my item, Two for the Road. Now, if you know me, I don't really talk about reality shows very much on this show or any time other than that, especially. But there's a scary moment on Dancing with the Stars Monday night. I don't know if anybody watched it. If you didn't watch it, it was all over the news the next day. Scary situation, and nobody should really have to endure something like this, even no matter what they've done. 2 protesters stormed the dance floor when Ryan Lochte, after he'd done his whatever dance he did.
The breaststroke?
Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea.
Freestyle.
Yeah, freestyle. So, but 2 things about this. One, there's so many important issues in this country to protest about, and you're protesting that Lochte is on Dancing with the Stars. I mean, what are you mad about? Are you embarrassed? He's embarrassed USA in Rio, and now you don't really want to see him do a waltz on TV. I mean, and then Lochte was very solemn after the show was over. He did an interview. He said, I'm trying to change as a person. I'm trying to grow as a person. And now I'm on this show. I'm doing something I'm not comfortable with. I don't really understand that logic really, because learn the foxtrot. It's going to make you a better person. You know, I don't understand. I think this guy suffered enough, really. I mean, he lost endorsements. He lost his spot on the U.S. team. I think he suffered enough, and I really don't think anybody really wants to watch him dance.
Maybe it was too soon to have him on the show after all that happened, or do you think?
Well,
and if dancing, at least he's fully clothed. He should be comfortable. And in the pool, he doesn't even get to wear clothes. He's in a
well,
Speedo.
you know, like I said, I think he suffered enough. I think we suffered too while that show was still on the air.
Well, we're all suffering. All you guys are suffering because the show isn't over yet. We're going to foxtrot on out of here. Matthew Sparks, I'm Aaron Snyder. We'll see you next week from Russell!